You're watching Global Trade This Week with Pete Mento and Doug Draper.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special Thanksgiving holiday edition of Global Trade This Week. I'm Pete Mento, and with me, as always, in the control booth is the Jim Nance to my John Madden, the very talented Mr. Doug Draper. Doug,
hey,
how you doing, buddy?
Well, short week, but things are good. It's a beautiful day in Colorado, and getting to hang out with some family. My kids are coming home from college tomorrow, so all is right in the Draper household this week.
Yeah, well, I'm a big believer that whenever you have a large gathering of family, particularly my family, what I need to do right up front is establish dominance by telling everyone that's come to visit, I am probably very drunk, and I'm not in the mood for any sort of political, religious, or otherwise touchy conversation by just letting it all hang out right off the bat. And the second thing that I do, Doug, is I like to put a lot of focus on other people, right? So, if people start asking me questions, I'm like, like look at your cousin and say, are you still dating that mime? I notice you're not drinking, Sally. Is it because, old trapped in a box got you pregnant? Like, what's going on? You gotta find opportunities to take yourself away from the focus of the conversation, Doug. I think it's extremely important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would imagine you've had lots of practice and you're pretty damn good at it. So
yeah, Doug, I am not the person you want at a family dinner. I am not. No, but I am excited today. I have on my NFL sideline reporter headset, so I can get back to the booth about what just happened in the Cowboys game. And you're coming in loud and clear. I look like a buffoon, but I probably sound okay, and you're coming in loud and clear.
Yeah.
And with this very special Thanksgiving week edition of Global Trade This Week, Doug, we did the coin flip. You've elected to kick off, and with that, why don't you tell us what's going on this week, buddy?
All right. Well, we got some fun topics. I think halftime is going to be a hoot, as my dad would say. So let's just get into it here, right? So mine is talking specifically about the full truckload spot market, right? So you have the contract market where you have rates that are defined for a period of time, specific lanes, you can bank on it. But there's the spot market, which fluctuates and is really kind of made the news a little bit more. When I was talking to my daughter, and this is how lame conversations are, even when I'm talking to her at college, is the difference between what a spot market is. And I said it's essentially like when you were driving and learning to drive and you jump on the freeway, nothing ever stops. Sometimes it slows down, sometimes it speeds up. There's things that happen that you need to react to, things you can see coming down the road that you need to work around, but it never stops. It is fluid. And there is also external factors continually impacted. So I thought it made a lot of sense, and she kind of just looked at me like I was an idiot on FaceTime. She's like, weren't you calling me because I needed some extra money? And I'm like, let me tell you about the supply chain. So anyway, so that's kind of the premise of it. But here's the take on it, is that technology, and more specifically the dispersion of technology to enable the average Joe out there to navigate the spot market with pricing, is going to flatten those rates. So what I mean by that is that for years and years and years, you had this broker that was the middleman, right? And now there's all kinds of technology through Uber Freight and other apps and things of that nature, where the dispersion or the control of the product and the service is being distributed and bypassing the traditional delivery method, and eliminating gatekeepers, which would be like the truck brokers, and it will reduce friction and cost. So my point here is that there is going to be technology that will continue to be available to the average Joe, who will no longer have to rely on the traditional broker model, and that technology will be able to take a layer of cost out of the system, the brokerage system as it has traditionally been defined. And that will help flatten the spikes and the volatility of the spot market in LTL freight. It's not going to fix the or not LTL freight, full truckload, I'm sorry. It's not going to fix the problem. There's still going to be driver shortages, but the tremendous ebbs and flows and the spikes, I think, will be muted and compressed a little bit because the individual consumer has the power and will continue to have the power and the technology to bypass the gatekeepers and the friction to keep their pricing at a more economical level. So, Pete, I came up with that one probably about an hour ago because I wanted to have some dynamic things. So I don't know. How did that sound? Does any of that make sense? Technology will help flatten the spikes of the financial implications of the spot market full truckload rate.
I think you're onto something with regards to technology. Whenever anyone would ask me what makes the big, great truck brokers so special, they always expect me to say technology. Right? But in reality, it's just scale. When you've got great technology, which even some really small freight brokers do now, you've still got to have great people. You still got to have, what is it, like 800 people that C.H. Robinson has in their Chicago office. You got a load, you got a truck, like all day long, right? You got to have that going. And then it also comes with the capacity of having distribution centers, warehouses, scales big. Now, these smaller brokers can make up for parts of that through automation and great technology. You really hit the nail on the head a second ago, Doug, when you talked about how that technology, which used to be so expensive, isn't anymore. It's gotten to a point where not only can smaller brokers afford it, but some larger larger buyers, such as the company I work for during the day, they can afford it as well. So we're in a position where if we wanted to, we could go out and we could source that technology, maybe even build it ourselves based on some of our own ideas, create a lower board, and start to seek that volume ourselves. And are we going to do that? Maybe not. But the point that you were sort of dancing around there is just the fact that we can, the fact that that's out there. I think that is a danger to the overall environment for some of these large brokers who are going to have to come up with other types of value in order to justify the types of rates that they charge us. And I think they are. The more I've gotten engaged recently, it's been a long time, Doug, since I've had to care about domestic freight. It's been a very long time. Yeah. But I care deeply now about domestic freight and small package. And I can tell you that the providers that are really focusing on it are trying to find ways to distinguish themselves from their competition, look for ways to greater entrench themselves with their larger customer relationships, and to look for ways to use not only that technology, but also processes to make them more valuable to the people that they're working with. And one thing that I'm surprised to say has really mattered to a lot of companies like ours, and the ones I talk to all the time, is footprint. Just being able to do things in places that other people can't, at scales that they simply can't. So that technology, man, that is going to be something that's going to matter for a long, long time.
Yeah. Who would have thought you'd ever buy a car online and never see it and have it delivered by a goofy little state bed truck that gets dropped off in your front yard? You and I would never buy a car like that, but you know what? My son would, and a lot of his friends would, and that's who's going to take over the world, my friend.
Can we not talk about that? Because then Keaton's going to pipe in with the world's going to be better for it. I'm going to get back in your sandbox, all right?
Cool. All right. That's all I got on that topic.
All right. So my first topic, I feel like George Carlin right now because it feels like a rant. But I was in Minnesota over the weekend. The far more significantly attractive half of my life. Her son had a surgery. He is getting his knee repaired, and I woke up early in the morning and went to a foreign Starbucks. Right? I don't like going to coffee places. Now, I'm a coffee agnostic. I will drink my coffee from anywhere. It doesn't matter to me. But I had a Starbucks nearby. So I went to that Starbucks for my, in case anyone's wondering, my Trenta cold brew, because Big Daddy needs his caffeine. And I went in there to get my big, gigantic cold brew coffee, and the very, very nice, because it's Minnesota, right? It's the Smurfs. This very nice person behind the counter says, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir, but we only have the small straws. We don't have the big ones." And I knew the answer before I asked it, Doug. I said, "Why is that?" And she said, "We're having supply chain issues." you have any idea how infuriating these past couple of weeks? It's been something I've noticed the past couple of weeks. Why don't you have paper bags to do my groceries with? We're having supply chain issues. Okay. How come I can't have extra sauce for my kids' Chick-fil-A nuggets? Supply chain issues, sir. Why don't you have ketchup packets? Why is it just in the big squid? Supply chain issue, sir. Mm-hmm. Oh, really? That's fantastic. So I'm at this crossroads where I'm wondering, Doug, are these really supply chain issues? Or are they just using that as a very timely and convenient excuse to just not have something, right? Like, we don't have it right now. Supply chain issues. I'm sorry, sir, but as much as you might like to have that, we're having supply chain issues. I intimately understand what's going on right now with the global supply chain. I'm going to go out on a limb here, Doug, and I'm going to say that there's maybe a few thousand people who understand it to the level, credibly, that people like you and I do. Mm-hmm. So when, and I won't forget her name because it was a delightful name, when Janetta at the Starbucks tells me they're having supply chain issues, I want to say to her, what are those issues? When the person who's bagging my groceries to Whole Foods says we're having issues, what are those issues? I want to ask what they are because I really just don't believe it, buddy. I think that people are co-opting this problem to explain a lot of other issues, which is bad planning. That's your supply chain issue. Poor PO management. That's your supply chain issue. Cash flow issues. There's your supply chain issue. Not having enough warehouse space in your distribution model. That's your supply chain issue. Don't use port congestion, which is on the news every night, as your supply chain issue, or I might start handing out slapdowns. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I would say two things. The fact that it's gotten so much attention on a national level, like we said, if it's one of the 3 stories on 60 Minutes, it's trending. And I love the fact that that is a story that leads before COVID on the nightly news. I'm being dead serious. That's a good thing. But you know what? You have an not underserved, but you got staffing challenges. You have impatient people. You have the holidays coming up. If I was a manager and I said, if somebody gets in your face about something that we are short of, your quick answer is supply chain issues, because it's going to move the conversation down. That guy's going to get his drink and move out of the way. And there is some truth to that statement in probably every scenario where there's a shortage of insert, whatever you want in that line segment. So I think it's funny. I love your comment because it's exactly right. And I think people are stretching it to use it as a convenient excuse.
How often, Doug, is it being used as a foil for the increase of price in certain things? We're all being told, go buy your crap early, go get it now for Christmas. I have not had a single solitary problem purchasing anything for Christmas. I've not had a problem. Has anyone had a problem buying a turkey? Me and my buddy Nate blew the head off of one for me a few days ago and dressed it for me, so I'm all set. But I don't really see this as much more than maybe a convenient excuse for raising prices. So I'll be fascinated to see just how much of this stuff that was overpriced is sitting around come the end of January, when everyone's used their cards and we finished with I think there's going to be a glut of retail. I'm calling it, buddy. There's going to be a glut of retail stuff to be purchased that was overpriced to begin with because they called the market wrong.
Nice. Well, the beauty of this show is that we can come back and check our stats and our abilities. So I like it.
Yeah. Well, that gets us to halftime, buddy.
Yeah. Well, I'll jump in. Mine's short and sweet, and we were talking just a few minutes before the show, and I can't wait to chime in on yours. But the one thing that caught my attention, I saw this thing the other day on a news report that last Thursday, the 18th of November, was the 66th time, 6-6, that the S&P hit a record high for the year. 66 times in 2021, there's been a record high in the S&P index. So I'm like, okay, well, what does that really mean? First of all, it's a tremendous amount of resets and all-time highs. There's 365 days in a year, and I Googled something that said there's 304 weekend days So you subtract that out, it's like 261 days. You got some holidays in there where the markets are closed, so let's call it 255-ish. And if you divide 66 by that, it's like 25% that we're hitting all-time highs, and for this year, which is just insane. I was kind of like, this is a mind-boggling to me, and I think it just goes that the numbers that are thrown out there in general, not only with the S&P, but the valuations of companies that are in the multi-billions that haven't made or produced a single thing, or have zero revenue that they've generated, or now have a market cap of X billion, or the market dropped 800 points today. Nobody even bats an eye on that stuff anymore. It just seems like these numbers, first of all, 66 in 1 year is freaking amazing, right? It's incredible. It finds a lot of positive things. But it's just another statistic where it's like, it's just crazy. And I'm like, hold up, what the hell's going on? So anyway, that's my halftime. I thought the 66th time in the calendar year was pretty amazing.
Well, I think most people don't really understand it, Doug. When they hear these things on the news, they're like, oh, the S&P hit a record again today. I don't know. I don't care. How's my 401k doing? They don't understand. Do you have any idea how many hours I had to sit through in my graduate school, my PhD work, of incredibly boring lectures by people who couldn't really make money in the real world, so they had to teach me this stuff on exactly how markets worked and inflation, to explain monetary policy and how the Fed works. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Like you and I care. That's it, So it is amazing, though, that the market is screaming like that. Absolutely incredible. So I have two things for our halftime by Cap Logistics, as I said to you. The first one, what I'm thankful for, Doug. It's Thanksgiving week, pal. I mean, we're all going to sit down with our frustrating and annoying family. We're going to look longingly across the table at our significant other and say, why did you do this to me? And at some point, there's going to be a moment where someone says, let's all go around the table and talk about what we're thankful for. And you're going to choke down what you want to say, probably, which is, I really can't stand any of you. I'm not thankful for any of this. I'd be thankful if I could just go home right now, watch the football game, drink a half a bottle of wild turkey, and go to bed. Like, I'd be thankful if I didn't have to be here. But I'm going to tell you all to go a different direction. What I'm thankful for is endless congestion at ports. I'm thankful that Customs and Border Protection can't seem to get their head wrapped around all the complexities and the difficulties of e-commerce in 321. I'm thankful for skyrocketing ocean rates. I'm thankful for a lack of drivers. I'm thankful for the fact that we can't find a chassis to save our lives, Doug. And do you know why I'm thankful? Of course you do.
I'm waiting for this. What is it?
It's keeping us so employed, buddy. Oh my goodness. We are so valuable. Finally. This may be the first time I'm going to go to Thanksgiving, or the first holiday season I've ever had, when people will actually value and understand what it is that you and I do. We work in the international supply chain. We help people get what they need from foreign countries into this country with as less stress as possible. Well, really? So what's going on right now? And then I will, through my bourbon-soaked haze, try to explain it to them in a way that doesn't terrify them. Yeah. That's what I'm thankful for, Doug. I'm thankful for the inconsistent way the world moves cargo around the world, because it consistently has kept us employed, buddy.
Yeah, I picture here's what I picture. Somebody asks that question, all right? You lean over and you give somebody a head nod to start some music. You push your chair back. You put on a velvet jacket. You light a cigarette. You said, "Join me in the next room," in front of a crackling fire, and you just spew knowledge about the supply chain, and people are in complete awe. That's the vision.
Let the soliloquy start. Oh, positively. And the second thing that I have for halftime by Cap Logistics is something that I have been wondering lately. All these situations that they do comedies in for sitcoms, and the sitcom is dying. That's really not something you see a lot of news for. How come no one's ever done a sitcom about the freight industry? How come we had Taxi, which is, sort of whatever. There's been a lot of places that had trucking, but I'm talking like a 3PL. Think about it, right? We have all these international players, all the chaos in our lives, all the drunken buffoonery that's happened in the past, all the corporate weirdness like The Office, all the stuff that happens from corporate that comes down, all the airport trash and detritus that ends up working at these places like me. I mean, there's some really good stuff that you could write from. There's some nuggets you could mine some amazing comedy from, buddy.
Right.
Right?
Like
That's
it.
the answer I get from you, right? That's you wouldn't want to be a character in a sitcom about 3PLs, buddy?
No, we could go down a wormhole on this one because everybody's got some crazy ass story of some shipment from a service provider, right? Which is, I've been on that side of the fence my entire career. Some crazy story about some shit you had to move from point A to point B and how it got all whacked up.
Yeah.
Everybody has a crazy character in their office that's pushing buttons and moving freight. You got some wild, I mean, you check all the boxes of character development, and this industry has them. So I think you're spot on.
Doug, when you and I were younger, working in this industry, when it was still kind of fun, Reverend Jim from Taxi, the guy that walked around, he had nothing on half of the people that worked at places I was at. I mean, there were some real characters. Now it's become a profession. People graduate from college and they can't wait to work in it. It's very, very. I feel that it's much more professional than it was when we were younger. And people come to work and it's very professional. HR is involved. I worked for a number of freight forwarders when I was young that did not have a human resources element that had thousands of employees. It was bedlam. It was fun to be around, but certainly not to be in.
Yeah, I love it. I love that one.
All right, so what's your next topic, buddy? What's topic number 2 from you?
Well, mine's kind of related to the rail industry. I know there's a lot of rail fanatics out there, so I'm not going to get into statistics or anything like that because I will not probably get them accurate, and then we'll be crucified on our comment section. But so it's more of a general sweeping statement. Is the rail industry has been kind of quiet on all this stuff, right? And I don't think they're going to change a whole lot to embrace the opportunity to generate more revenue or change the way they move intermodal freight from the ports inland. And I think primarily because the rail industry has been around for close to 180, 190 years. They thrive on infrastructure, which takes a while to build out, as we know. And so to pivot and offer an amazing service offering to deal with intermodal, I don't think it's going to happen. So the point here is what's the rail industry going to do to either increase efficiencies, make some additional money, things of that nature? I think they're just going to sit tight. I don't think you're going to hear a whole lot about the rail industry and their approach to supply chain challenges. From talking to rail folks that I know over the years, is that if they can get a unit train, which is one gigantic train with one commodity moving from point A to point B, that's the bread and butter. And dealing with intermodal boxcars and the connectors that we've spoken about before, Pete, to try to transition it from one railroad to the other, it's almost somewhat disruptive. And the supply chain will correct itself. You and I both agree it's not going to be next year, maybe closer to 2023. But if you're in an industry that's been around for 180 years and you're seeing this blip, and if you extend it, the time, it really is a blip, and that the rail industry is going to sit tight. It is what it is. The infrastructure. We'll do our darndest to do the best we can to move your freight. And if you want it moved a little faster, then we're going to raise the rates a little bit and try to prioritize you to the front of the line. So my point here is that rail has been kind of quiet in what are they doing, how are they reacting, and I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of difference in how they approach this supply chain chaos, because in the big picture, it's a blip in their world, and intermodal is not their bread and butter when it comes to revenue generation. And that's my opinion.
Yeah, I would liken this, buddy, to just imagine, if you will, cable, right? Your at-home cable network. We're at the point now where most of us get our Wi-Fi from our cable provider. We also get that pipeline to a lot of local sports and stuff. It is what it is. It is a physical interchange into the digital network that allows us to gain access to so much information. But it's a lot of infrastructure. A lot of infrastructure that they paid for over time, knowing that it would pay off in the end. They're constantly innovating. But is that innovation really significantly changing the infrastructure, or is it significantly changing the interchange from the infrastructure to the person who uses it? And I look at that as a great model of the railroads. They don't really have to change that much. They've made such massive investments. They know how to make money on it. They have a captive market. And when's the last time anyone really complained in a meaningful way that said, it's time we change this damn thing? It's a great alternative to doing things over the road. It's cost effective. It's environmentally positive. It goes from state to state in a way that really has very few interruptions. And if you do it right, intermodal transportation is a godsend for a lot of companies. So Doug, we're not disagreeing today on your two topics. I think that the opportunity for rail to become more and more important is really going to come from the way that we manage its use by the carriers. But right now, making money hand over fist, the way that it's being done, no one's standing in the way of them combining themselves, and they're just getting more efficient at making more money out of the same business. I don't see a real reason to do something to change, buddy.
Yeah. Well, I got to pull my turkey out of the freezer and start thawing it. So jump into your fourth topic, my friend, and let's wind this bad boy down.
Yeah, my fourth topic is a little tongue-in-cheek here. I'm doing a presentation eventually next year on innovation in the supply chain. And I originally wanted to call it Everything I Needed to Learn About Supply Chain Innovation I Learned from Drug Cartels. But come on, right? You can't really lead with that. But all kidding aside, Doug, this is an organized group of people who have always found a way to deliver. These are the same people who use submarines to get large quantities. The same group of people who have found somehow a way to get where they wanted to get their goods in here. The one that really got my attention was when the United States and Mexico began to collaborate at the southern border with the over-the-road movement of drugs. They started making tunnels. They started making tunnels between houses on very long ones. So you'd have a house on the Otay Mesa side, and then or a house in Tijuana on the other side of Mexico. And they would make hand-built tunnels that would turn up on the other side of the border in someone's home in the basement. So they would build these extremely long tunnels that went under the U.S.-Mexican border. They came out on the other side, and they operated for years. And then as soon as somebody found out about that tunnel, they already had 3 or 4 brand new ones built. So if they closed it down, no big deal. Go to Tunnel 6. Right? It was a brilliant supply chain operation. And when I was looking at it, I started thinking, well, tunneling, and I started texting. And you know what, buddy? Our old friend came up again. Good old Elon. Elon Musk comes up again, much like he does in many of these conversations about innovation and logistics with his firm, The Boring Company. Elon has been trying to convince the world to create our pathways below ground rather than above them. Elevated highways as a whole, roads even, for the most part, between large cities, in his opinion, are unnecessary. They are ugly. They are a waste of real estate. And what we ought to be doing is moving our cargo first and then our people second in pathways below ground. And he has had, if you haven't seen The Boring Company and what they've done, he's had some great success so far in building large-scale, impressive tunnels. Problem is, they are ridiculously expensive. So he hasn't quite gotten to a point where it's cost-effective. But all he's really doing is mimicking what the drug cartels did. He's building underneath all of the things that are frustrating them. He's going from the port of Long Beach underneath LA is what he says we ought to do. There's a tunnel that goes underneath all of it. It comes out the other side, far away from the population areas. I hate to say it, Doug, but that old weirdo alien might be onto something.
I don't know. Pete, I hate to disagree with you as specific to boring. First of all, the analogy with the drug cartel is phenomenal, right? Only you could come up with that one and play it off and have our audience say, yes, I think he's right. But kind of like drones and high-speed trains, and I don't know, man, that's a shitload of money to build a hole to move some cargo. Not all, not a little bit, just some. So I don't know.
You know what else costs a lot of money? You know what else costs a lot of money investment? Private space flight. That also costs a lot of money. And old Elon figured it out, didn't he? He nailed that one. So did Bezos, right? So there's a lot of people that have. I honestly think that if you say to people like Tesla, and if you say to the Bezoses of the world, Sergey Branson's, I mean, who knows, right? Maersk, Hapag, you go to these big carriers. What if we decided to build some tunnels, and we built them from these ocean ports underneath the rest of the city, so that we never had to see the blight of these ocean containers ever again as they drove from place to place? And think of all the traffic that would alleviate. Think of what that could do. Now, I'm glad it's not my job to figure that out. But I'll tell you right now, if it meant that I had to pay a surcharge to make it happen, I think my clients would love it. I think my customers would love it. I know I would. But the amount of time, the amount of money it would take to do it, it's take a long time. I don't know, Doug. We may be at the get off my lawn age right now. We may be the what is this contraption for? Someone get my readers and put on Matlock age if the two of us keep talking like this.
Yeah.
I have to get Keenan on. I bet Keenan's going to be like, oh, I think it's a great idea. As soon as we get off here, he's going to be sitting there sucking on a juice box, having some graham crackers, waiting for SpongeBob to come on. Like, ooh, brilliant idea.
That's funny. Well, Pete, speaking of funny, I had a good time on this show. It's the last one before Thanksgiving, and we really haven't talked about it, so this is kind of right off the presses, but I think we're going to do a prediction show for 2022. We'll figure it out. It'll be a lot of fun. We'll do a different format, and it'll be good. So our audience and our listeners, keep tuned. But in the interim, we have to thank Cap Logistics for putting this thing on. Keenan gets a lot of gruff, but he's back there pushing buttons and flipping levers and stuff like nobody's business to make this thing work and get it out after we tape it. So Cap, good people, great company, caplogistics.com. And that is it. So Pete, I'm thankful for you. I'm thankful for this show. Appreciate your friendship. And we will see you on the other side of Turkey Day.
All right. Thanks for you too, buddy. God bless you and your family. You have a great vacation. You have a good holiday. Take it easy, buddy.
You too. Take care.